Hello and welcome in, nerds. It's me, Makazi, coming back at you with another Nintendo Switch video. This time, it's a retrospective. And you might be wondering, isn't it a little bit too early to be doing retrospective on the Nintendo Switch? And to that I say, with the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out soon, I think it's a great opportunity to take a real look back on the Nintendo Switch's journey. This system is literally 8 years old, okay? And I've had it for a good chunk of my life. I got it at launch, and it's just been an amazing system. So I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of go through my experience with the Nintendo Switch, as it may be different from a lot of other people's, and go through some of my favorite games, some of my, games I was like, man, I wish they would have done better with this, as well as just go through generally how Nintendo did with the Switch. You know what I mean? And so first off, just to get it out of the way, some stats about the Nintendo Switch is the trailer, and I remember this, went live around, I want to say it was like mid to late January, and then pre-orders came out like right after. But I remember the way I went about this journey was, I have to take you back a year. A year before the Nintendo Switch came out, I had just talked to my friend, and I told him I was tired of the console wars, I'm done with the PS4, and Xbox and Nintendo's Wii U, and I just want to get out of the console race. And so I had asked him to help me build a computer. He obliged. He also said he wanted to build himself a computer, so he was like, hey, why don't we just do it together? So we both built PCs, and we started PC gaming a little bit. I was kind of struggling with the whole keyboard and mouse stuff, but, I was starting to kind of PC game a little bit, and I still did have the PS4 for the record at that point. Then about a couple months after the PC was built, I was like, man, I'm really missing Nintendo games. I miss the Marios. I miss the Zeldas, And so I decided not to get a Wii U, but instead to get a 3DS, which I had, I think Pokemon Sun and Diddy Kong Racing is what I bought when I bought it from a retro game store. And I played those games a fair amount. And then the Nintendo Switch was announced, literally like a month or two after, because I think I bought it in November. And the Nintendo Switch was announced in January. I watched that trailer, man, and it blew me away. I watched the presentation that they gave, taking the console off the dock, walking around with it, showing everything off, showing Zelda, showing Mario, these reimaginings of these, famous franchises. And I remember talking to that same friend, and we were both like, we have got to get Nintendo Switches. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, we got to get this system. So we buckled down together. We went to work, I think, the next day, because I vaguely remember that pre-orders went live pretty quickly. I think it was like the day after that trailer was launched, if I remember correctly. And I could be misremembering this, but I could have sworn it was like a day or two after, because I remember being at work. I shared an office with a coworker who also wanted a Nintendo Switch, and we were all just going through websites together. Me, my friend through the phone, and my coworker. And I believe they both got theirs through GameStop. I ended up getting mine through Walmart, from what I remember. And the fact that I was able to even get a pre-order was amazing. Because the last time I went for like a gaming launch was for the Wii, and that was just a disaster. So the fact that I was noticing and noticeably getting a Nintendo Switch on launch day was just like mind-blowing to me. And so the day came, Nintendo Switch was launched. I got rid of my 3DS almost immediately, which is a big regret of mine in hindsight. I wish I had kept it, to be quite honest with you, but I did end up getting rid of it. And so that was the start of the Nintendo Switch experience for me. And I will say, this system is amazing. 8 years in, tons of great games. I looked it up before I started filming this video. It currently has over 12,400 games. And more games are coming out, I feel like, every week for this system. I'm pretty sure this system has the biggest library ever created, like, for a gaming system, because it was such an indie, like, darling. You know what I mean? Like, so many indie games were being ported over to it. I remember devs saying that it was very easy to port their games from Steam over to the Switch way back in the day, and I think that really dramatically helped this system. It was released on March 3rd in 2017. And it's sold over 150 million systems worldwide. It's not the number one selling system of all time. I think PS2 still has that. I think so. I think PS2 or the DS family of systems, one of those two is still slightly above it. But, damn, that is a lot of systems. That is a ton of games for an amazing hybrid system that, once again, Just like with the Wii, the other game systems started copying them and being like, well, we'll have motion controls and then we'll have the Kinect. The Switch is the same way. As soon as the Switch was announced, like a couple years later, everyone wanted to make handhelds and hybrids now. And so now you have things like the Steam Deck, and you have like the ROG Allies and your Asus. I don't even know what they're called, honestly, because I don't have them. And now there's talks of Microsoft's working on a handheld. PlayStation has their Portal. They're just kind of copying Nintendo once again, which is a good thing, because now we're getting more variety and stuff. But with the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out, I kind of wanted to just go back and go through like kind of, I guess, like my experience with the Nintendo Switch, because I got it on launch. I was able to get, I believe, Breath of the Wild, I think Has-Been Heroes, Snipper Clips, and Bomberman, all within like the first like month of it being released. And I could say right now, Snipper Clips wasn't physical. That's a digital game that I do still own. Has-Been Heroes, I did get rid of, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really love the game that much, and so that was in one of my first purges of games. I still have Breath of the Wild, and I did also get rid of Bomberman, probably in the first or second purge of my collection, because throughout my time with this system, I have been collecting a lot. And it's not really, it's kind of a weird coincidence. I started getting this system and some games back in 2017. I only got a few games here and there. When Splatoon came out, I got that, played that to death with my friends. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, same thing. I was really only getting like big Nintendo franchises. I wasn't really going too deep. I did end up getting Sushi Striker and a couple other things, but overall, I will say I was only getting, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 games a month at most. And that might seem like a lot to some people, but at the time, I was making good money, and I had just started dating my girlfriend, now wife, Erica. And so, we wanted to get games and play games together. So, sometimes I would just go out and grab them. And so with the Nintendo Switch, one of the great things about it is the fact that like it feels like every game is on this thing. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of games that are on PlayStation only and on Xbox only. Well, maybe not Xbox these days. But the Nintendo Switch just has a ton of games. And some of my most played games are definitely like Monster Hunter Rise, Splatoon 2 and 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Breath of the Wild, like your big ones, especially your, playing with friends ones. Those are the ones I definitely will say that I've put the most hours into. But my current collection is around 213 games, according to price charting, which I have started putting all my games on there. And that's, not including some of the digital games I have. I do think I have like 15 to 25 digital games, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but there's a reason why I have as many digital games as I do, because again, I'm a physical collector. And back in 2017, that was the time where collecting retro games was still kind of like low key, and like people did it, people flipped games, but it wasn't really like a big thing. Like I will say, like now I feel like it's a big to do. Like if you're a game flipper, you're like the Antichrist at this point to most of the internet, just because of the way that, and we'll get into it, the way that COVID kind of made the retro game market kind of just implode on itself. And so back in 2017, I started collecting, I started going to more gaming conventions and stuff. And then around, I think it was 2018 or 2019, if I remember correctly, was when I decided to dust off all my old retro game systems and start collecting for those. So now I was collecting retro game systems and consoles from my childhood, like the SNES, N64, GameCube specifically, and the Wii, and I was also collecting the Switch. So I kind of got into this collector's mindset, and I started seeing like certain games for those old systems, how they got so expensive over the years because they had low print runs. And so I kept an eye out for that with the Switch. I was like, if I knew something was going to have a low print run on the Switch, I felt like sometimes I just bought it because I was like, I don't want to have to pay double or triple for this, 5-10 years down the road if I want to play this game and I want to get it physically. And that is kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but I do want to talk about the bad part of Switch. And the biggest problem with the Nintendo Switch, and collecting specifically for the Nintendo Switch, is the FOMO culture and the epidemic of limited printed game companies. I think, you know what? Before I get into that, because I don't want to get too much into that rabbit hole, just to kind of continue with my kind of like explanation of my history with the Switch, is also around that 2018-2019 mark, my friend and I, him, Jesse, also from Nerd Crew, we started selling stuff at gaming conventions. And the thing I started selling was these shells for the Nintendo Switch, mostly the controllers. I did Pro controllers and I did Joy-Cons. And what I decided to do was, and I don't have them on me because I sold them all out, but I used to do like the clear ones, like the old like N64 clears. I would swap those, and then I took the old shells and I painted them a different color. Now, I will say it was a lot of trial and error. Taking apart Joy-Cons was a pain, and also having to sand and paint them all was a lot of work. And honestly, most of them didn't end up working. I think I only ended up with like 5 pairs that actually were completely okay to sell. And I do still have a pair right here. This one right here. This purple and orange color that you see here, these are not the official purple and orange Joy-Cons from Nintendo Switch, because it was literally 2 months before they announced those colors that I chose those colors, because I was like, those are the only colors I feel like Nintendo hasn't done yet. And so I started doing them. And then I went to my first convention, and they had just announced that they were releasing orange and purple. So I was basically unable to sell these things. I actually lost money on that adventure, because my plan was to sell basically the shell swapped controllers for small profit, and then most of my big profit was going to come from the old shells I was repainting and selling them as like DIY kits. The problem that I didn't realize was no one wanted to DIY their own controllers, so I just didn't sell any, like, at all. I still have a couple, if I'm being honest with you, and I can show you them right now. So they're a little hard to tell, I think, on camera, but like, yeah, these are the Pro Controller ones. We've got yellow, and I could probably take it out of the box, honestly. It might be easier to see because all the plastic and stuff. But basically, all I have left is yellow, orange, and pink. I did also have red, but I did sell those, I think to a friend, actually. But I still have this, like, yellow one here. And you could see, like, what I did was I painted the inside of the old Pro Controller shells. And this one, again, is yellow. This one's orange, and I have pink. And I painted them with, like automotive paint, so that they would really last and be a little bit more scratch-proof. And I'll admit, these things are super cool. And I personally wish I had more Pro Controllers just to use them. But I don't, and I can't convince anyone to take them. I've tried going to retro stores and saying, hey, do you guys take DIY kits? No one takes them. It's just, I'm stuck with them. And luckily I don't have many of them, because this was a starting venture, and my hope was to keep going with it, but it just didn't take off. And that's fine. I cut my losses, and it was before the pandemic, so it's not like things were crazy at that point. But me and Jesse did go to, I think, like 3 conventions to try and sell those. And he also had other products and 3D printable stuff that he was also trying to sell. So that was kind of like my journey through also going to those retro game conventions and, you know, starting my collections. That's where I started collecting for the Wii and the GameCube a lot more. Before that, I had just had my my childhood games, and that was it. After that adventure, I kind of just said, no more. I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. And then instead, actually around that time, 2019-ish, when I stopped doing that, was when I started up Nerd Crew, or before Nerd Crew, and started streaming and stuff. So that was kind of how my I'm not going to call this a career, but this is how my hobby of content creation really started. But the conventions and stuff was pretty cool. The customization was hard work, but it was fun. And the ones that I did sell, I will say, I did have very happy customers. Like, I will fully say that I remember the looks on their faces where they saw them at a convention where it was like, these are so cool. I see them online all the time, but I don't know if I could trust them. So it's cool to see them in person where I can physically see them, feel them, and make sure that they work properly. And so, yeah, I basically sold out of all the other ones. It was just the custom ones that were supposed to make me my money were the ones that didn't end up selling, unfortunately. Yeah, now I want to get into the pandemic side of things. You know, during the pandemic, obviously everything shut down. Gaming became huge. Retro gaming became even bigger, which is why it was getting even harder to start collecting for different systems. And that was when the big Animal Crossing boom happened, which, you know, Animal Crossing was a great game, and it came out at the exact right time. I also want to get into kind of the post 2020 era of the Nintendo Switch. I would say between 21, 22, all the way till now has been kind of the era of what I call remakes, remasters, and reimagining, where I feel like, and I mean, even beforehand, I mean, they've reimagined almost every franchise that they've ever had. Nintendo has done such a great job bringing out new games for older franchises that are just reinvigorating them. But I will say lately, especially the last 2 or 3 years, they've been pumping out a lot of remakes and a lot of remasters, which has kind of stalled out my retro game collecting, because I keep wanting to to buy retro games, and then they re-release them on Switch, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to get the old version. I might as well just get the new one. Some examples of this are like Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 got a remake. I own that game. I own both of those games, I think, actually, on GameCube, and now I'm at the point where it's like I might as well sell the GameCube ones and just keep the Switch ones. They've also remade what's that other Wii game? They've remade Metroid Prime. That's another GameCube game they remade. They remade like Mario Galaxy and with the triple pack and stuff like that. So they've remade a lot of games, and I wish I could remember them all right now, but they have remade tons and tons of their titles, and so now it's kind of like get them on Switch. It'll be easier. You can play them handheld, and not have to worry about it. So that's been probably one of my favorite parts about the Nintendo Switch is the amount of remakes and remasters, if I'm being honest with you, especially when you're talking about all these old JRPGs that were stuck on the PS1 and Famicom and other systems. Now they're getting re-released onto the Switch for whole new audiences, and I'm that new audience. Like, these are a lot of games I've never played before, so I'm excited to kind of jump into them. But that's kind of all the good stuff about the Nintendo Switch. I want to kind of talk about the bad side of the Nintendo Switch, and this really dives more into collecting purposes. This is the era that I've been collecting video games in, and what I've seen I have not liked, if I'm being honest with you. I'm part of a couple Switch collecting groups on like Facebook and stuff like that, and I see it all the time, this hardcore FOMO culture where these companies, and it's not just the limited printed game companies, it's just all these companies are like releasing games. They're not printing tons of them, and then when they go out of print, they're just like, we're probably not going to print more of them. Most people are buying digital anyway. So physical game collectors like myself, who didn't get the first print and stuff, are basically left out in the cold. And it's like, well, great, now I got to go to a reseller. They know that the demand is high, and they jack the prices up. I mean, one of the first times I saw this was Xenoblade Chronicles. That's like a Nintendo first-party game, but for some reason the physical was like weirdly hard to find. Some other games that did it were like Doom 2016. That was another one that was hard to find. Attack on Titan, The Final Battle Part 2, I think is what it's called, did that. The Atelier Ryza series 1 and 2 both did that. And then there's others too that I'm just not remembering it now. But these games are games that, like, they came out. People were like, oh, it's going to be exclusive. There's not going to be many made. Like, get it now. So all these collectors would buy them, and it would just inflate the market immediately, which is weird because that's never happened in game systems before. Back in older retro systems, either they printed enough, or even if it wasn't exclusive and didn't print a lot, you just didn't know about it because the internet didn't really take off like that. Because now we're finding out nowadays that there's games that were like GameStop exclusives or Best Buy exclusives, and now they're harder to find because you realize no one ever bought them. But back then, no one really noticed. It's different now. Now it's like, right away that, oh, this game is going to get sold out and I'm not going to be able to get it in 5 or 6 years unless I pay double. So it's just a mess. Like, the FOMO culture is real. It's definitely taken over from me, I will say, and we'll get into it in a little bit when I start to show off some of the games. But like, FOMO culture has really crippled me, honestly, over the past couple of years. There's so many games that I've bought, and that's why my percentage of played versus not played games is almost 50-50, because there's so many games that I've bought just because of the fact that I'm like, I don't want to have to pay double for this in like 5 months if I want to play it in 5 months, so I'll just get it now. And same thing with these limited printed game companies. I had to look up a list of them because, when limited run games first came to the scene, it was like, awesome. I'm so glad that someone is making these things physical. These are games that wouldn't have gotten a chance otherwise. But now limited run games has really just become like a factory of printing games for companies that honestly should be printing their own games, like Lucasfilm and Konami, and there's a couple others that it's like, you guys have the money and the connections. Why are you using limited run to print small amounts instead of just making a big batch? But I just want to go over them really quickly. Like, some of the companies are like first print games. Then you have ones like Premium Edition, Red Art Games, Special Reserve Games, Strictly Limited Games, Super Rare Games, Super Deluxe Games, The Behemoth, and Ultra Collectors. And then VBank Entertainment. What the hell is this one? Like, okay. Who are these people? And why do they think that they need to take over the publishing market is the question. I feel like they had good intentions in the beginning, but with all these companies, the biggest problem is the exclusivity, the limitedness of it. You know, if you're someone who's just casual and you want to play one of the games that they've printed, finding that game physically is now out of reach if you didn't get in on the pre-orders. One of the biggest examples of this is super rare games. I have a ton of super rare games, which you can see in my other video that I just finished filming, actually, where I went through my entire gaming collection. Super Rare Games has printed so many games. I think they've got to be up to like 160 different titles at this point, but they always only do about 3,000 every time. 3,000 or 7,000, I think, depending on the game. And that's a problem. So if you want that game physically, if you didn't get in on that pre-order, you are never going to find that game out in the wild unless you go to like a convention or a retro game store who's going to charge more than what it was originally. A lot more. Super Rare Games were notorious for like you buy them for 35 euros and they're immediately worth like 50 to 60 bucks the second they get into your hands because there's no more. It's just whatever has been pumped out. And I just don't like it. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it. I don't like all these limited printed games. I hope when the Switch 2 comes out that companies will kind of stop doing that as much. I legit hope that more of these companies end up getting either shut down or become, I hate to say it, a little bit more like limited run where it's just open pre-orders and just releasing like 10,000 copies for every game maybe. Because that would be ideal. If they just said, hey, we're going to release 10,000 copies and then we'll also do an open pre-order if you want that as well. Like just have games at the ready. Have them in stores. Like I don't want to have to go online and search up all these companies. I mean, I just did now and I never even heard of half of them. Well, a third of them. But like to a normal person who's not a collector, they probably haven't heard of any of them except for maybe limited run. And so this whole like epidemic of limited printing game companies, that's really on the Switch, I will say, because before the Switch, none of this really existed. And if you notice, all of those companies are the Switch. Limited Run does also do some Xbox and PlayStation, but all those other companies do not. I don't think any of them do those systems at all. I think they are exclusively all Switch printing companies. But yeah, it's gotten a little out of hand, and I hope that with the Switch 2 that they kind of tone it back for sure. And the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about with just the Switch in general before I go into some of the games and stuff that I want to recommend to you guys is kind of talking about some of the favorite things I had about the Switch and what I'm excited for the Switch 2. Because one thing about Nintendo is they love to make weird stuff for their systems. I mean, if you look, you can go as far back as I think the Super Nintendo even had like a Game Boy player. That's unheard of at the time. The N64 was supposed to have a disc drive in it and cartridges. And I think there was like a weird online thing with the Super Nintendo too, if I remember correctly. The GameCube had a ton of weird attachments. Some of those ports, we still don't even know what they were for to this day. And then you go to the Wii and forget it. The Wii was just like the king of weird shit that you could buy for that system. Mostly plastic garbage, but the Wii U, I don't remember having too much stuff. They were kind of like a Wii and Wii U. They kind of had the same stuff for the most part. And then came the Switch. And the Switch is when Nintendo got really creative. And I don't think people realize this. I don't see people talking about it very often, but it's like you've got these, you know, people will talk about like the Labo, for example. Like, oh, they came out with cardboard. They sold us cardboard. They sold us really awesome buildable pieces that you could put your system into and do cool things with. Like it was creative. It was awesome. And it just burns me that they kind of just came out with this. They had so much opportunity for it and they were just like, all right, we're done with that garbage. We're moving on to the next one. Can you imagine for a second what we could have gotten if they had, you know, done more with this VR set? Like they really only had VR for a couple of games and games that didn't even make any sense. Why is Pokemon Snap not have a camera VR? They actually made a Labo camera. They didn't put it for Pokemon Snap. Makes no sense. I feel like Nintendo could have printed money with stuff like that. And I will agree that I do wish it wasn't cardboard. I do wish it was plastic or plastic card, at least, of something a little more sturdy. I did note this in my collections video. I do have only the one Labo set number 4, which is the VR set with the headset and the gun. And I will say the gun is cool. It's such an amazing piece to build, but it's been a few years and the rubber bands have actually all broken. I haven't used it in a while, and I noticed it when I was getting the stuff ready for my my collection video that there's like 2 rubber bands on it and they just snapped. And I was like, oh, now we know they have a shelf life, but that's just the way it goes with rubber bands. So yeah, I do wish this was made of plastic and not cardboard, but it's still a cool thing. They also have weird things like the train controller for the train games that they have. There's like a fishing controller specifically for like some kind of weird angler fishing game. They have we can't forget about the Mario Kart stuff. They have a wheel, like a really cool wheel, desktop one, but they also have the AR game, the Mario Kart little cart that could drive around with a little AR camera on it. Like, these are all cool things that I hope the Switch 2 will also have. When the Switch 2 was first announced and they showed us that camera, one of the first things that popped in my head was like, wow, I can't wait to see what people on Etsy make that camera into. You know what I mean? I already foresaw a Piranha Plant, and I said it on our live stream when we were talking about a reaction to the Switch 2 announcement trailer and the Direct and stuff. And then like a day or two later, Hori came out and was like, hey, we made a Piranha Plant camera. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. The Switch 2 is going to be awesome. They're going to have a lot of weird stuff, and I'm here for it. I love the Nintendo weird stuff. That's why the Wii is one of my favorite systems. They had a lot of weird, quirky games with quirky controls and weird extremities, whatever you want to call them, for all the plastic, junk that they created. But I'm excited for the Switch 2 to have some stuff. And I mean, even the Switch 1 had some of that stuff. Like, you can go and find Switch Joy-Con like holders that are baseball bats and stuff. It's just no one bought them. The Wii, everyone bought them, but the Switch, no one cared. Everyone realized at that point, it's like, nah, we're not falling for that garbage again. But yeah, so I'm excited for the Switch 2 for that reason, for sure. But in the next part of this video, I just wanted to take a chance to kind of go through some games and show off some of my favorite games, some of my favorite parts of my collection. If you want the whole collection video, you can go ahead and subscribe and watch the video. It should be out by now because I'm probably going to release that one first. And go ahead and go over and watch that. Give it a like. It will be a long video, so I mean, maybe listen to it in the background. But in this one, I'm going to mostly focus on some of the best games of the system, games I liked, as well as a couple games that I was a little disappointed by. Okay, and first up, I'm going to go through some of the games that I found to be ones that I think that everyone who has a Nintendo Switch should basically play these games at some point. And again, I'm a physical game collector, but not everyone is. So if you can find these games even digitally on sale, I highly recommend them. And these are just from my collection. There's also probably a giant list out there of games I would recommend that I haven't even played. But these are ones I played all of these before. And first off I'm going to talk about is River City Girls. This game is a limited print game from Limited Run, but this game is just awesome. It's a beat-em-ups game, 1 to 2 player, where you play as these 2 girls, and you're trying to basically save your boyfriends. And I will say it sounds very dumbed down and stuff, but me and Erica played it, and we had a blast. There is a River City Girls 2, which we haven't played yet because I just haven't bought it. But one day I hope to buy that game and add it to my collection and play it. Another game that I would recommend is this one, NES World Championships. Or World Championships NES Edition. This game is a blast to play at a party. Like, it's just speed running, old style games. I think there's 150 plus challenges from 13 different NES games, and it's just a blast to play. Definitely one that I highly recommend playing if you host people. If you ever host events or go to parties and stuff, it's definitely one that I would recommend bringing with you, along with Mario Golf Super Rush. This is probably one of the best sports games on the Nintendo Switch, and that's coming from like a certified hater of this game. It is very fun to play with people, but my God, is it frustrating as hell. Something about the putting in this game is just intense for no reason. And there might still be a clip on our TikTok channel about us playing that game and the nonsense that we kind of went through with it. But another kind of party game is Unrailed. This one, I believe, is a super rare game, so getting it physically might be a little challenging. This is also available on PC, but if you have it for Switch, I definitely recommend it. I think there's an Unrailed 2 out or coming out. But I definitely recommend that for parties as well. I've played it with a few friends. It's 1 to 4 players, and you're basically just building railroads to get your railroad from one side of the map to the other. And it can be a little challenging, but honestly, it's pretty chill, and it's a good time to play with friends. I feel like all my party games are on the top of this list, but we got Super Mario Party Superstars. Mario Party Superstars, this is the one that is the N64 remakes, the good one. For a long time, there was 2 Mario Parties on the system, and this was the good one, and the other one was the disappointing one. But, of course, another game that is an essential, in my opinion, for Nintendo Switch owners is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is a remake of a Wii U game, or is it a remake? I guess it's a port, technically, remaster, whatever. And they did end up adding a bunch of new stuff. So this version of it, I wouldn't get. I would look out for the one that has all the DLC on the cart. That way you're not paying extra for it later. This one is just a great time with your friends. You gather up the I think it says 1 to 4, but I'm pretty sure online, yeah, you can play up to 12 people, I think, online with this one. Get all the friends you can, go online, have a blast. Next up, another little party game is another super rare game, Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. This game is awesome. It's up to 4 players. You play as 4 players trying to get through the galaxy to find basically your friends is what it boils down to. Whereas each player has to control one specific part of the ship, and you can kind of move around. And this game, I haven't beaten it yet. I've played it multiple times with Eric and a couple of friends, but this is one of those games that, like, if you don't have 3 other friends to play, the game is exponentially harder. If you're playing 1 person, it's 4 times harder. You're playing 2 people, it's like twice as hard. But if you play with 4 people, it's doable. Next up is, okay, it looks like here's another party game for you. Super Mario Party Jamboree. This game came out and we were like, damn, dude, we already have 2 Mario Parties. Do we really need another one? Yes, and you need this one. If there's, out of all the Mario Parties on the Nintendo Switch, if you have to pick one, Jamboree is the one to pick. This game is phenomenal. Definitely one of the best Mario Parties to come out, probably ever, if I'm being honest with you. And it's saying that for the Nintendo Switch 2, it's going to get an update and an upgrade. So even more of a reason to get this game, or maybe even wait until the Nintendo Switch 2 version comes out. All right, it looks like we, let's see. I'm trying to go through the stack a little bit. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's another decent party game. This one's also from Super Rare Games. Tricky Towers, Collector's Edition. This game is just kind of like a Tetris versus mode, but it's a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend playing this with your friends. I've played it a couple times with some of my buddies, and it really is kind of just like laser focus on the TV, trying to get your tower to be, stable and stack up to the top before your friends do. It's a lot of fun. All right, that kind of looks like that's kind of gone through most of our, and there might be more, but the next game I want to talk about is definitely Super Mario Odyssey. This is a must-buy game, and it is getting an update for the Nintendo Switch 2. Super Mario Odyssey is such a big reimagining of this franchise. 3D platformer where it's kind of open worldish for you, and you might argue that's kind of how Mario 64 was, and you'd be right. Mario 64, Galaxy, all those games kind of have the same kind of ideals, but the biggest difference with this has to be the cappy mechanic. Being able to take over enemies and use their abilities to go and get moons, what an amazing idea. What a fresh perspective on the Mario franchise that game is. I would say another, this might not be a must-buy, but this is definitely one of my favorite games that I've gotten on this system, and it's from Red Art Games, which is another limited printed game company, but it's Double Kick Heroes. I remember seeing this game back at PAX a long time ago, and I want to say it was PAX 2018 maybe, and I gotta say, what a phenomenal looking game. Like, I was watching people play it, and I was just like stunned. It's probably one of the most metal games for sure on the system, with, I think there's actually like real metal music in this, if I remember correctly too, because you can there's a mode where you can play just for regular songs, and I think they have like Trivium songs and shit in this game. So I definitely highly recommend that if you're a metal fan. It's got a lot of cool cameos in it, or I guess they're tributes really, because I don't think the people voice act them, but they're in the game. But yeah, I definitely highly recommend this one if you're into rhythm games. It is a hard game, I will say that. The controls are not fun, but I think that's what adds to the difficulty of it. Next up is a game I beat a while back. This one's from Strictly Limited, and it's Fox and Forest. This is kind of more of like an older style, I would say Super Nintendo, maybe NES style game, platformer, where you can kind of change the seasons and use that to get through the levels in different ways. And this one is a lot of fun. I will say this one, if I remember correctly, is one of my most priciest games on my console. Again, it's from Strictly Limited. They didn't do a lot of them, and the collector's edition for this game is crazy expensive. But I definitely recommend playing it. Again, try and get it digitally, because getting that game physically is kind of expensive and hard. But next up is kind of a game that's kind of dear to me, and that is Flint Hook, which is also another limited run game. Flint Hook is I guess technically it's a 2D platformer roguelike, where you go from ship to ship to kind of loot it and find things to feed your compass so that it can take you to your next bounty. And this game is really awesome. And the reason why it's kind of near and dear to me is because I actually cosplayed this character, this Flint Hook character. And when my friend Silent Warlock Cosplay was helping me make this cosplay, he posted on his Instagram, and the devs actually saw it and told him, hey, you said you're debuting that at PAX East. Tell your friend to come over to our booth. And I'll be honest with you, I got lost and couldn't find their booth for a while, but they ended up giving me some little freebies. They gave me this little anchor sticker, and they gave me some Pogs for their new game, which I keep in the case. It just was nice. It was nice to meet them. I took some pictures. They put it on their Instagram. Unfortunately, they put it on Instagram story, so it's not there permanently, but it was just a cool time, and it's kind of one of those moments that I'm going to remember for a long time, especially for a game that I actually do really enjoy and highly recommend. From a company that, honestly, Tribute Games, the little heart one right here, they make really good games, and I highly recommend if you see that symbol, just go ahead and try that game out. Another really great game on the Switch is this one, Wizard of Legend. This is not what it normally looks like. I have it in reverse. This is another limited run game, and this is what the case actually looks like. But this is a really fun game. I will say the load times for the Switch are kind of crappy, and there is a Wizard of Legend 2 coming out, so you could just wait for that. But if you wanted to give it a try, I would recommend it if you can find it. Or again, get it digitally. I believe this is another limited run game. We have Bad North. This is a sleeper hit, friends. If you're a fan of roguelike games, I definitely recommend Bad North. It's kind of like an mini RTS is the best way I can describe it, where you're a band of Vikings, basically, who are protecting different islands, and you go from island to island and protect it from invaders. And it's very strategic. It's kind of challenging, but not crazy challenging. Like, it's a good roguelike, and it's one of the few that I've actually beaten, to be fair. The next one I want to talk about is Pokemon Legends Arceus. This game is definitely probably in most people's must pickups, and it's because it's a Pokemon spin-off, technically. It's not a mainline game, and I've said this a billion times to my friends and stuff, that the Pokemon Company, Pokemon mainline games haven't been good in a while. But Pokemon non-mainline games have been awesome. Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Arceus, back in the day you had Pokemon Pinball, the stadium games. Those are always hits. But for some reason, they just don't make them all the time. But when they do, they're very good. And I can't wait for the next Legends game, which is coming out on Switch too. Another must-buy in my opinion, and this one you can kind of give or take in, because I put it up there, but like this is probably one of my most played games on the Switch, and that is Splatoon 2. I also have Splatoon 3, and obviously I would recommend Splatoon 3 over 2, but both games are phenomenal, and I highly recommend getting 3 because that's the newest one. If you want to play the story of 2, go ahead. It's, the stories aren't really the big thing about them. It really is more of the online multiplayer and stuff, which is why I would suggest kind of skipping 2 and just going straight to 3 if that's what you want to play. Either way, I think that Splatoon 3 is definitely a must. Next up, we have the classic Zelda Breath of the Wild. This one, it's funny because this game is probably one of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but it's sequel I just couldn't get into. I love Zelda Breath of the Wild. It is the first game I got on Nintendo Switch. When I picked it up on launch day, I bought this and Bomberman were the first 2 games I bought. And I played Bomberman, I beat it, I played a little bit of online, I got rid of it, but Zelda, I sunk months into that game because games weren't really coming out that frequently for the system. So I got snipper clips online and like digitally, and I ended up picking up Has-Been Heroes, but it always came back to Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I remember actually around the time that I think it was when Mario Odyssey was coming out, I was just finishing up Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I only did that because I was like, I know Mario Odyssey is going to take up a lot of my time, so I got to finish Zelda. And I'll be honest with you, I definitely didn't 100% the game, didn't get all the Koroks, didn't finish all the side quests, and I think I was missing like 2 or 3 temples, but I got my money's worth out of that game for sure. Breath of the Wild, fantastic Zelda game. Again, huge reimagining of a franchise that I think was struggling a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. Next up is Monster Hunter Rise. Now, this game, I will say Monster Hunter Wilds is out at this point, but Rise on the Switch is a phenomenal game, and I highly recommend getting it. If you haven't played it and you're a Monster Hunter fan, or even if you're someone who's kind of been thinking about Monster Hunter, but you don't have a system that can handle Wilds, or you only have a Switch, you got to get Rise. Such a fantastic game, great to play with friends. I'm pretty sure there's still a big community playing this game to this day, and it's not very hard. It's definitely the easier of the Monster Hunter games. They streamlined a bunch of stuff, and they made it so that you didn't have to do certain like dumb things like stopping to drink your potions and stuff. Now you could walk while you're doing that, and like your attacks were better and stuff. So just overall, fantastic game. Highly recommend. These next couple of games aren't necessarily exclusives to Switch or anything, but I definitely recommend playing them on Switch. And the first one is Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb is an awesome game by Devolver Digital, and it's just you play as basically the savior of a cult pretty much, and you're going around taking out these other gods to make your god, happy pretty much, while also maintaining your cult. And I will say this game is a ton of fun. It's awesome. The Switch load times are a little probably long, but other than that, plays very well on Switch, perfect for handheld mode, and I highly recommend it. And same thing goes for Hades. Hades is another game. I got this around the same time Monster Hunter Rise came out. And this is just a phenomenal game. It's so damn hard, though, I will say, that I have never beaten Hades. I've gotten to him a few times, but I've never beaten him. And I hope to one day get back into this game and beat him. But this was in the era of, like, roguelikes have become a huge part of the Nintendo Switch's, like, identity. And games like this really propelled it because they were indie games that I think Hades might have come out on Switch first. It was like a small timed exclusive. And games like this, Enter the Gungeon, Cult of the Lamb, Dead Cells, like they exploded on the Switch. Being able to take it handheld, these pickup games where you could just play for 30 minutes, put them down after a run, they're what definitely propelled the Switch to be as popular as it is, in my personal opinion. Roguelikes really propped this system up. And great ones like Hades and Cult of the Lamb were definitely huge legs on the table that is the Nintendo Switch. Another kind of sleeper hit for a lot of people, in my opinion, is Dragon Quest Builders 2. If you haven't played a Dragon Quest Builders game, you could probably skip 1 and go straight to 2. It's basically like Minecraft, but it has a Dragon Quest story to it. And I played a pretty good chunk of this. I think I played like 10 or 15 hours into it, but the whole Minecraft aesthetic and stuff is what kind of got me away from this game, which is why I didn't finish it. I'm just not that creative of a person, especially when it comes to building stuff. So that kind of escaped me a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. And maybe one day I'll go back to this game, which is why I keep it in my collection. But if you're out there and you're looking for something like a builder game, I definitely recommend Dragon Quest Builders 2. I have one more game that I think is just a must-have, and then I've got a small stack of games that I think are sleeper hits, and then a small stack of games that are disappointments in my collection. So the last game that I think is a must-have for all Nintendo Switch players is Mario Wonder. Mario Wonder is quite possibly the best, or one of the best, 2D Mario platformers ever created. And honestly, it's one of the only ones I've beaten. I 100%ed this game. It's one of 3 games in my entire life I can say that about. And what is there that can be said? I mean, it deserves all the accolades and awards that it did end up winning. It's a phenomenal game. If you like Mario games in any way, shape, or form, it's a must-buy. And even if you don't, I think you should still buy it and try it out, for sure. All right, now the next stack, small stack, is what I like to call I don't want to call them hidden gems, but they're kind of hidden gems. These are games that, like, I've played these ones and I think they don't get talked about enough. So I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of chat about them a little bit. And the first one is Let's Go Pokemon. This one is Eevee. Erica has Pikachu and I have Eevee. And I just have to say, again, this is another instance where Nintendo did a little wacky thing and they created this little Pokeball device, which you can kind of see right here. Now, this was kind of like a keychain, and you would use it as a Joy-Con. It's got like a little joystick right here, and you would actually throw it at the screen to catch your Pokemon. Now, a lot of people, the reason why I want to talk about this game is because a lot of people crap all over this game because they didn't like the fact that you didn't battle to level your guys. You caught Pokemon instead, kind of like Pokemon Go. And a lot of people just didn't like the fact that, oh, why do I got to sit there and throw my Pokeball at the screen to catch Pokemon? Like, what are you, a grumpy old man telling kids to get off your lawn? Like, that's fun. This was a fun game, and I'm tired of people dogging on it so hard. This is another game that I actually collected for the first time ever, all 151 available, because if you got the little Pokeball, you also got a Mew. And the cool thing about the Pokeball is you could put one Pokemon inside of it, walk around with it, and it would kind of give them XP, I think, if I remember correctly. You got to remember, this was back during the Pokemon Go phase, you know what I mean? Like, people were up and going. They wanted to get out of the house, especially after COVID, and this game was fantastic. Some people tout it as a kid's game. I disagree with that. I think this is fun for all ages, and I think the Pokemon Let's Go series, I really do hope they come out with a Let's Go Johto version, personally. I wouldn't mind a Gold and Silver remake also, but like if they did Let's Go, I guess, I don't know what they would do for that one, like Let's Go Lugia and Ho-Oh, like I would play it. I would totally play it. Personally, that generation would fit best with the Legends series, but honestly, if they ever make a Let's Go Pokemon game again, I'm going to be all over that game. I think this was a ton of fun, a great way to experience Kanto. Again, another great reimagining of a franchise that honestly needs the help. And again, Let's Go is another one of those not mainline games, which is, I think, another reason why I like it so much. Another sleeper, and I might get shit for this. I'm fully expecting people in the comments below to be like, dude, you're out of your mind, that game is garbage. Because I hear it get trashed on all the time from tons of creators, and that is ARMS. I just found out that this is also getting some enhancements for the Nintendo Switch 2, and one of them, I think, if I remember correctly, was some frame rate stuff. This is a 1 to 4 player game where you pick a character and you basically just kind of punch with the Joy-Cons. You have to like kind of hold them up and like punch them and like move side to side to dodge and stuff, and it's kind of almost like a mini workout. I've brought this over to a friend's house a couple of times, and we played it together, and we had a blast. It's just a fun game. Now, I will agree, because I bought this game for $50 used, which means I think this is a $60 game normally. I do agree this probably should have been a $30 game, and that maybe that's where people have the issue with it, but the game is fun. It is. I'm sorry if you didn't have fun with it. That's fine, but I did have fun with it, and I didn't even play it that much. I keep telling myself to go back to it, but overall, I think that is also kind of a must-buy. And I think people are starting to say that this new wheelchair game is the ARMS of Switch 2. And so I think it's also going to get dogged on, but I'm probably going to end up buying it and trying it. And with my history of love for ARMS, I'm probably going to end up liking the damn game. So I'm kind of excited, and we'll see how that game ends up being. Next up with the sleeper hits, I will say this one, I remember it being in a Nintendo Switch Direct and thinking it was the coolest shit in the world. And I don't know why, because it's such a dumb game. But that is Sushi Striker, The Way of Sushido. Now, I haven't beaten this game, but I have played it quite a bit, I'll be honest with you. It does kind of have a little bit of that mobile phone game kind of aesthetic, but because it's got touchscreen controls, so I would 100% definitely play this in handheld. Do not play this on the TV. But it's cool, and you could go head-to-head against your friends. I tried to get my friends to buy the game, and of course none of them did, but it's, I don't know, it's just a cool little arcadey feeling kind of game to me. But it does, I could see why some people don't like it, because it does kind of have that mobile phone touch control kind of thing going for it. But especially if you can get a friend to play against. I think that game should go into the collection for sure. Next up for some hidden gems is Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Now, I can't say much about the new one because I haven't played the sequel to this game, but this game was awesome. It did have a DLC for Donkey Kong, which I never ended up getting, unfortunately, but this game was a ton of fun, and this game is, the reason why I really trust Woodhawker from Beat 'em Ups, because he recommended this game when everyone else was kind of like, what the hell is this? And based off the way he described it and everything, I ended up giving it a try and loving it. And after that, I was like, okay, this guy has obviously good taste, and I can trust his opinion on games. And he's honestly almost never steered me wrong at this point, except for, and we'll get into it, Tears of the Kingdom. But overall, I will say this also is the first tactical RPG that I played, or tactics-based game that I've played, I think ever. And it might, I did play some Warhammer games, but I don't think I played the tactical ones until after this one. And this kind of made me fall in love with the genre. It's the reason why I muscled through Tactics Ogre for as long as I did, and it's the reason why I want to go and try a bunch of other games, like Triangle Strategy and Final Fantasy Tactics and some other ones. Back in the day, I saw those games as, oh man, they kind of have what looks like kind of boring turn-based aesthetics to them. But then after playing this, and honestly, in Tactics Ogre, I did like the tactical part of it. It just, I had issues with other things, which you can go watch that video if you want. But yeah, that was a great game, and I do recommend everyone getting that one too. Again, on sale, because I think that might also be a $50, $60 game, but I'm pretty sure you can find it for $30 these days. Next up, this is kind of a weird game I've never really heard anyone else talk about, and that is Origami. Origami Shadow Edition. This, I believe, is definitely on PC. It might be on other systems as well, but pretty much what this is it's like a Tenchu Z style game where you play as a ninja who has been, I think if I remember correctly, he's been killed, and he's kind of like reborn with the shadow powers, and now you have to go through the shadows and use shadow abilities to get to your targets and get through the levels and stuff. And it's really cool. It's a nice stealth game. There is a little bit of fighting in it if you want. It's not like Tenchu Z where if you get caught, you're screwed. You can fight your way out of some things, but generally speaking, you're going to want to stealth through it. And I like that. It's honestly a fun game, and it did get, I think there is an Origami 2. I just haven't gotten the physical for it yet, which is why I haven't played it. But I definitely want to. And another game that, this one kind of took me by surprise, and that is West of Dead, Path of the Crow. This game is another roguelike game. I know, so many roguelikes, where it's a roguelike twin-stick shooter where you're kind of going through levels, and you're trying to figure out how you died, why you died, and how you're, I believe, going through purgatory, if I remember correctly. But the gameplay is just a lot of fun, and the level design and the really like dark, demonic hellscape is really cool to kind of play through. It's a really metal game. I highly recommend if you can get a hold of it. I don't think this is from any low printed game companies, thankfully, so you should be able to find it. I never see it on store shelves and stuff, so it might be a little bit tougher to find. The next one is Monster Menu. This game I think is also on PlayStation and maybe other consoles as well, but I don't know what it is about this game that I played it and I honestly had a great time with it. I bought this game as kind of like a gimmick because it has the word monster in the title, and we were doing Monster Mayhem, I think last March or a year ago. And so I bought the game, and it's just a dungeon crawling game. It kind of reminds me of Dungeon Meshi a little bit because you have to like eat, and if I remember correctly, you have to like, I don't think you cook the monsters, but I definitely think you get food from some of them. And this game came out, or I think it was already out by the time Dungeon Meshi came out, but I was already kind of hooked on Dungeon Meshi. And then this game, I saw it and I was like, I need more. And so that's why I got it. And then the manga came out for Dungeon Meshi, and I read that recently. But just kind of reading through that manga makes me actually want to play this game more. So that's why I'm going to recommend it. And again, I wasn't expecting it to be good, and it was. And those are like the best games to me. And finally, for hidden gems on the Switch that are must-buys, in my opinion, the last one has to be Toad's Treasure Tracker. Captain Toad, my boy. I got this game with no expectations. And what a cool little puzzle game this thing is. Being able to move the world around, to collect all the coins and stuff, it's a lot of fun, and it really makes you think through the game. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to think. It's not super easy. It's got a good challenge. There is a 2-player mode, which is kind of weak, I will be honest with you, because it's just the other person is like a cursor, I think, on the screen, if I remember correctly. But that definitely is one of those games that I really recommend. Everyone should try it, at least. And if you can get this guy on sale, because I don't know how much this game retails for, it's probably $40, $50 game, I would definitely pick it up if you ever see it. And I think actually that one's also getting some kind of enhancements for the Switch too. So now we have a stack here of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that I would say are probably my biggest disappointments that I've bought on the Nintendo Switch. And these are games I still currently own, because there are other games that were kind of disappointing that I did end up getting rid of already. So the first one is going to be kind of an obvious one, and that is going to be Super Mario Party. I was starved for Mario Party. I wanted a good one so bad. And then they released this game. And it has some cool mechanics to it and a couple cool like mini games, but the boards are way too small. The games are way too small. And honestly, I don't know. I didn't really love the buddy system. I'm going to be honest with you. The buddy system was a little broken in this one. In the newer one, they kind of perfected the buddy system, in my opinion. This was like a beta for the new Mario Party to be as good as it is. The next one is going to have to be Kirby Star Allies. This one was kind of disappointing to me, more so because I've never played a Kirby game before. And so this was my first ever Kirby game, and I didn't realize how incredibly easy Kirby games can be. But then I talked to my friend who's a huge Kirby fan, and he was like, oh no, not all of them are like that. It's just that one. That one is kind of like the easiest game ever made. And so now I'm kind of like, well, damn, now I really want to play other Kirby games to see what the differences are. And I've been told that Crystal Shards is probably one of the better ones on the N64, as well as Dreamland, Return to Dreamland, and also that the newer one, which I don't have, which was, again, another reimagining, more open world style Kirby game, which is going to get a Nintendo Switch 2 kind of, not remaster, but it's going to get a big enhanced version with another level. And I think I'm just going to wait for that version and probably get that. The next one I have to say is Immortals Fenyx Rising. I've tried playing this game once or twice. This was after I had already beaten Breath of the Wild. It's a Breath of the Wild clone. It looked really good on paper, like a Greek mythology style Breath of the Wild, but for some reason I just couldn't get it. It's something about it, it just didn't capture the same magic as Breath of the Wild did. And to that, note, same thing with my next one, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know what it is about this game. The story is more interesting when I go back into the memories, but it's some reason it just doesn't capture the same magic that Breath of the Wild did. Like Immortals Fenyx Rising and Tears of the Kingdom, both I played them. I did play Tears of the Kingdom for a while, like probably like 10 plus hours. Fenyx Rising probably like 2 to 3 hours. And yeah, I don't know what it is about them. Every time I pick up Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like I just get bored with it and I'm like, why am I still playing this? It's because I do want to play it. I do want to beat the story, but for some reason I just can't get into it. And I've been yelled at by multiple people saying that I'm crazy and that it's one of the greatest games ever put out, especially on the Switch, but I just don't know what it is, man. I feel like the upper stratosphere area is very boring. The underground is very stressful and boring somehow at the same time. And then the other areas are like kind of similar to what you already played, just with a couple added things. And then you have to deal with all the building mechanics, which I think a lot of people love. Again, I'm not the most creative person in the world, so I keep wasting 40 minutes building a wagon that ends up not even being able to move. So it's just not really a game for me, I guess. But the next one I will say that it was disappointing is going to be Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. This game is still, I think, exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. Oh yeah, Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. Me and Erica tried playing through this game, and we got up to Kingpin, which I'm pretty sure is like the second boss of this game, and we just got stuck. We just cannot beat him for some reason. And I keep telling myself that I want to try again from the beginning and just restart, but I just haven't really mustered the strength to do that. I actually let a friend borrow this game because they really wanted to try it, and they said the same thing, that they played it for like an hour or two, and they were just like, yeah, something about it just didn't click. We just didn't like the gameplay or something. I do like the gameplay aspect of it, but something about the game's difficulty spike, or I don't know what it is. Maybe we just didn't level enough. I just don't get it. And last but not least, the other game that I will say that really, really just disappointed me for kind of a random reason is going to be this Konosuba game. I bought this game because I'm a huge Konosuba fan, and I don't know why, but because remember, the Switch is region free. It's not region locked. You can play anything from any region, which is great. And I've bought a bunch of Japanese imports and stuff because of that. But this game doesn't have English on the damn game at all. So I bought this game, and I can't play it because it's in Japanese only. And that is why it's disappointing. Plus, I will say I did muster through and play it anyway, and it ended up being just a like basic old-style dungeon crawling RPG. I don't know what else to call it. It's one of those like first-person dungeon crawlers. And I was just like, oh, I thought this was going to be like a fun adventure with, you know, the crew, especially because if I'm not mistaken, this is an original story. You know what I mean? So it's kind of lore. It's an original story to the mangas and the franchise and stuff, and I just can't even play it. So that was a little disappointing, I will say. But yeah, those are kind of the games I would say are must-buys, and some disappointment ones you might want to be wary of. And yeah, that's kind of just my retrospective on the Nintendo Switch. I gotta say, it's, again, one of my favorite systems of all time. I love collecting for it. I love the library. The fact that it has over 12,000 games is phenomenal, and I can't wait to keep collecting for this system. Now, me personally, I originally set a goal of not trying to get over 250 games for this system. I currently am at about 213 physically. Again, we're not counting the digital games, and so it might be time to purge again, but generally speaking, I think I'm probably, now that I know the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, I'm probably going to up that number to maybe 400 and then have Switch 2 exclusive games to be probably close to around the 250 mark, just because there's so many games. And I'll be honest with you, I watch a YouTuber who goes over all the physical releases every week, Physical Paradise. I'll leave the link down below. And every week they release, you know, these are the games coming to Nintendo Switch. And I know they're going to do it for the Switch 2. But damn, every week I watch that and I'm like, I can't believe there's another 10, 15, 20, whatever games coming to this system. It's amazing. It's an amazing library. It's, in my opinion, the best console ever created. The fact that it's a handheld that you can take on the go and a console you can plug in your TV. It's got a massive library. It's got a lot of quirky things. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the PS2 was better. But in my opinion, it was cool for its time. And the only thing it really has against the Switch is that it can play DVDs. And honestly, I'm kind of slightly surprised that Nintendo didn't come out with a freaking DVD player that you could plug into it. Maybe the Switch 2. We'll see. But with that, I'm super excited for the Switch 2. It comes out on June 5th. I will definitely be picking it up the night of. I will be going to midnight release. I'll be picking up 2 games. I decided to get Rune Factory and obviously Mario Kart. Even though I'm very much against the concept of $80 games, and I hope Mario Kart is the last $80 game that I purchase for $80, but we'll see. But I just want to thank everyone who watched this video. If you liked it, go ahead and drop a like, drop a comment. Tell me what games you like on the Nintendo Switch. Try to keep it not the basic games, like the typicals, but if there's like a hidden gem that you really liked, or if there's like a top 5 games that you think like everyone must buy, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And especially if it's games I don't own, give me recommendations to add to the collection. And also go and watch the collection video, because this isn't my entire collection. This is probably 1/10 of it. I've got definitely a lot of joy and happiness out of this system, and I can't wait for the Switch 2. So I hope you guys will take the Switch 2 journey with me when it comes out. But until next time, go ahead and follow us over on Bluesky and Instagram. You can subscribe to this channel where I'll be posting monthly, at least monthly pickup videos, as long as I pick something up. I can tell you there definitely will be a monthly pickup for the month of May, because I'm looking at a stack of stuff that I have over in the corner that I picked up this month. Also making other gaming content related videos. I'm working on other genres as well. Thinking about moving into, board games and manga and stuff like that. We'll see how that works. I just want to say thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a great day. I'll catch you nerds later.